Lonely pages. Dust motes danced in the afternoon sunbeams, slicing through the tall windows of the Oakhaven Library. Samuel Johnson, head librarian and keeper of its silent stories, hummed a tuneless melody as he straightened the biography section. He ran a gentle hand over the spines, each book a potential portal to another life, another world. A pang of something akin to envy, a feeling he usually kept tightly leashed, tugged at his chest. So many lives lived, so many adventures had. His own felt quiet. He plucked a slightly askew copy of The Life of Marie Curie and carefully returned it to its rightful place. He knew every book in the library, not intimately perhaps, but he knew its feel, its smell, its general location. It was a comforting familiarity, a bulwark against the loneliness that sometimes threatened to engulf him. "Afternoon, Samuel," a voice chirped, breaking his reverie. He turned, a smile already forming on his face. Mrs. Abernathy, a woman whose age was as much a mystery as the plots of the thriller she devoured, stood beaming, a stack of paperbacks teetering precariously in her arms. "Mrs. Abernathy, good to see you. Find anything thrilling?" he asked, his voice a soft tenor. "Oh, you know me, Samuel. Always looking for a good mystery. Though, life itself seems to be providing enough of those lately," she said with a wink. "Are you going to the community bake-off this weekend? I'm entering my prize-winning lemon squares." "I hadn't planned on it," Samuel admitted, fiddling with his glasses. Crowds weren't really his thing. "Nonsense. You need to get out more, Samuel. A handsome young man like you shouldn't be spending all his time with dusty old books," she scolded gently, her eyes twinkling. "Come on, try a lemon square. Maybe you'll meet someone." Samuel chuckled. "I appreciate the thought, Mrs. Abernathy. I'll consider it." He knew he wouldn't go. The thought of navigating a crowded room, making small talk, filled him with a low-grade anxiety. Another patron, a young college student named David, approached the desk with a handful of textbooks. "Hey, Samuel, you got any good books on existentialism?" he asked, wrinkling his nose. "Existentialism? Let's see." Samuel mused, tapping his chin. "We have Sartre, Camus, of course. But for a more accessible introduction, you might try Sophie's World. It's technically a novel, but it covers a lot of the core concepts." David looked skeptical. "A novel? I need something, academic." "Trust me," Samuel said with a reassuring smile. "It's a good starting point. And if you still find yourself lost, come back and we'll delve deeper." He checked out David's books, making a mental note to pull Sophie's World for him later. He genuinely enjoyed helping people find what they were looking for, whether it was a gripping thriller or a dense philosophical treatise. It was one of the things that made his job worthwhile. The afternoon drifted into evening. The last of the patrons trickled out, leaving Samuel alone in the hushed stillness of the library. The scent of old paper and beeswax polish hung in the air, a familiar and comforting aroma. He began his nightly ritual of tidying up, straightening chairs, and turning off lights. As he locked the heavy oak doors and stepped out onto the quiet street, a chill wind whipped around him, carrying the scent of rain. The streetlights cast long, lonely shadows. He walked the familiar route to his apartment, a small, one-bedroom above a bakery. The aroma of freshly baked bread usually cheered him, but tonight it only served as a reminder of the warmth and connection he lacked. His apartment was neat and tidy, almost sterile. Books lined the walls, of course, but they were carefully arranged, almost as if afraid to be touched. He turned on a lamp, the warm glow doing little to dispel the feeling of emptiness. He heated up a can of soup for dinner, eating it alone at his small kitchen table. He thought of Mrs. Abernathy and her lemon squares, her well-meaning suggestion that he needed to get out more. He knew she was right, but the prospect felt daunting. He was comfortable in his routine, in his solitude. But lately, that comfort felt more like a prison. He rinsed his bowl and wandered over to his bookshelves, running his fingers along the spines. He picked out a volume of poetry, hoping to find solace in the words of others. But as he sat in his armchair, the book open in his lap, he couldn't focus. The words blurred, the silence amplified. He felt like a character in a book, trapped between the pages, yearning for a story that hadn't yet been written. A story of his own. A chapter begins. Samuel paused at the threshold of Pages in Prose, the town square's beloved bookstore. A heady aroma, a blend of vintage paper and freshly ground beans, beckoned him inside. He usually sought refuge in the hushed sanctity of his personal library, yet the kindly patron's reminder about connection resonated within him. Tonight, immersion, not mere acquisition, was the goal. Inside, the bookstore presented a delightful disarray of towering shelves, each packed with literary gems. Sunlight poured through the expansive front windows, illuminating dust motes that pirouette in the golden rays. He drifted along the aisles, fingertips grazing the book spines. Pausing at a new releases display, the jacket's vibrant hues were a jarring contrast to the subdued palette of his study. As he considered a compilation of short stories, a figure caught his attention. Near the poetry section, bathed in the amber glow of a Tiffany lamp, stood a woman. Her stature was striking, accentuated by a torrent of dark braids cascading down her back. She wore a dress of bold Ankara fabric, practically buzzing with kinetic energy. Straining to reach a volume on a high shelf, her fingers barely grazed the spine. "May I assist?" Samuel asked, his voice a tad louder than necessary. She pivoted, her eyes widening ever so slightly. Chocolate brown irises, laced with threads of gold. "Oh yes, please. This one's proving rather elusive." Stepping closer, a nervous flutter danced in Samuel's chest. He easily retrieved the book, a slender collection of poetry by Maya Angelou, and passed it to her, their fingers brushing momentarily. A spark, delicate yet palpable, arced between them. "Thank you," she said, her voice a warm contralto. "I'm Imani." "Samuel," he replied, warmth flooding his cheeks. "Samuel Johnson. Not the lexicographer, I gather?" she inquired, a playful smile gracing her face. He chuckled. "Merely a humble librarian, I'm afraid." "Humble librarians are the guardians of untold universes," Imani countered, tilting her head. "So, Mr. Johnson, what brings you to Pages and Prose this evening?" "Just browsing," he confessed, suddenly feeling exposed. "Trying to venture beyond the confines of call numbers." "A laudable pursuit," she responded, her eyes twinkling. "Which genres typically hold your fascination?" "I confess to a weakness for historical fiction," Samuel admitted, "particularly accounts illuminating the lives of forgotten figures." Imani nodded thoughtfully. "I gravitate towards narratives celebrating resilience and the indomitable spirit. I also have a penchant for speculative fiction that challenges our perceptions." "Have you encountered Nnedi Okorafor?" Samuel blurted out, surprised by his own enthusiasm. "Her fusion of African mythology and science fiction is simply breathtaking." "Absolutely," Imani exclaimed, her face radiant. "Who Fears Death" is a personal favorite. The world-building is unparalleled. An effortless exchange ensued, dissecting favorite authors, dissecting plots, and debating the merits of different writing styles. Samuel was captivated by Imani's keen mind and fervent spirit. She spoke with quiet assurance, her words woven with wit and empathy. He learned she devoted herself to helping at-risk youth as a social worker within the community. Samuel noticed Toni Morrison's beloved, worn with obvious love, resting under her arm. "That's a profound piece of literature," he remarked, letting his gaze trace the cover. Imani's smile faltered, a fleeting shadow crossing her features. Indeed, a stark reminder of female fortitude in the teeth of unbearable horror, and of scars that run too deep to ever fade fully. She paused, consciously shaking off the mood. "And what enthralls your attention lately, Samuel?" He hesitated. Truthfully, he admitted, a blush warming his face. "I've been consumed by library acquisitions, little else." Imani arched an eyebrow. "A librarian neglecting recreational reading? That is unexpected." "Guilty," Samuel conceded. "I've been stagnant, perhaps. Trapped in a rut. Routines offer solace, but can also become gilded cages, Imani observed, her gaze unwavering. Samuel felt a jolt of recognition. She was spot on. They talked for another hour, oblivious to the other patrons weaving around them. As closing time approached, the bookstore owner began to dim the lights. Alas, our literary encounter nears its conclusion, Imani said, a note of regret coloring her voice. So it seems, Samuel replied, a genuine sense of disappointment washing over him. But perhaps we might continue this exchange sometime. Imani paused, her eyes searching his. I'd like that very much, Samuel. Retrieving a business card, a splash of color in her hand, she extended it towards him. Call me. Samuel accepted the card, his fingertips prickling where their skin made contact. He watched her make her way toward the exit, the vibrant Ankara print a final burst of color in the dwindling light. Clutching the card, a smile bloomed on his lips. Stepping out into the cool night air, the world appeared brighter, infused with possibility. For the first time in ages, Samuel felt a stirring of anticipation, a flicker of hope reaching beyond the printed page. A new chapter, it seemed, had indeed commenced, turning pages together. The rich scent of roasting coffee beans embraced Samuel like a warm hug against the autumnal air. Across the worn table at the daily grind, a cafe alive with murmuring voices, he watched Imani. Sunlight, filtering through the window, painted golden highlights onto her irises as she spoke with fervor about a recent piece on Afrofuturism. He was utterly captivated, drawn not just to her words, but to the radiant energy that infused them. So, you see, she explained, leaning in conspiratorially, a playful spark in her gaze, it transcends mere spaceships and androids. It's about reclaiming agency in our narratives, picturing futures where Black lives not only endure, but flourish. Samuel chuckled, sipping his latte. My familiarity with Afrofuturism is, admittedly, rudimentary, but you present a persuasive argument. He meant it wholeheartedly. While he'd always appreciated intellect, Imani possessed an effervescent zeal that breathed life into even the most recondite subjects. Rudimentary, perhaps, she teased, her eyes dancing, but I detect a thirst for knowledge. She winked, and a pleasant warmth bloomed within him, banishing the habitual chill of his solitary existence. Their conversation unfolded naturally, ranging from Toni Morrison's prose to the debate of vinyl's warmth versus the convenience of streaming. With each shared smile and thoughtful comment, Samuel felt a bond forming, a sense of connection he hadn't known he yearned for. A few evenings later, Imani invited him to a poetry slam held in a dimly lit downtown space. The air pulsed with a palpable energy, a blend of anticipation and unbridled emotion. Samuel, typically more at ease amidst the quiet confines of the library, found himself unexpectedly invigorated. He watched, spellbound, as poets took the stage, their voices swelling and receding with fervor and conviction. Some conveyed anger, others heartbreak, some radiated hope, but each performance resonated with power. When Imani's name echoed through the venue, a wave of apprehension washed over him. She strode confidently to the microphone, the spotlight illuminating her features. She paused, inhaled deeply, and began. Her voice, usually light and whimsical, deepened, acquiring a haunting timbre that held the audience captive. She shared a poem about her grandmother, a woman who had confronted immeasurable adversity with indomitable spirit. The words were unvarnished, sincere, and profoundly touching. Samuel felt tears welling in his eyes as he absorbed her tapestry of love, loss, and resilience. As she finished, applause thundered through the room. Fingers snapped in rhythm, heads bobbed in appreciation. Samuel felt a surge of pride, not only for her talent, but for her courage in exposing such a vulnerable part of her soul. Following the slam, as they navigated the bustling streets, the city's vibrant hum surrounding them, Samuel sensed Imani appearing somewhat overwhelmed by the masses. The sidewalks constricted, people jostled. The din verged on cacophonous. He instinctively reached out, gently touching her elbow. "Here," he offered, his voice a calm harbor amidst the storm. "Let me guide you." Imani met his gaze, her eyes mirroring the city's neon glow. For a fleeting moment, he glimpsed a flicker of fragility, a hint of the caution she typically masked. She hesitated, then nodded, accepting his support. He carefully steered her through the crowd, his hand a constant, reassuring presence. He created space for her, subtly deflecting the brunt of the pushing. He felt a curious protectiveness rising within him, an impulse to shelter her from any discomfort. Upon reaching a more secluded street, Imani paused, turning to face him. "Thank you, Samuel," she murmured. "That was intense." "Of course," he replied, his hand still lightly resting on her arm. "Anytime." He studied her, truly saw her, discerning not merely the luminous, self-assured woman he'd encountered at the daily grind, but also the complexities, the vulnerabilities, the fortitude simmering beneath the surface. He realized his desire to delve deeper, to comprehend more, to share in her world. He wanted to continue turning pages together, uncovering the rich narrative within. A question of the heart. Samuel traced the rim of his coffee cup, the lukewarm liquid doing little to soothe the butterflies tap-dancing a jig in his stomach. He'd been up half the night, replaying Imani's poetry slam, the way her voice had cracked with emotion, the fire in her eyes as she spoke of reclaiming narratives. He hadn't just been moved, he'd been changed. "So," David drawled, his voice laced with amusement, "you've been staring at that cup for 5 minutes straight. You gonna drink it or propose to it?" Samuel jumped, nearly spilling the coffee. David's wheelchair was tucked neatly against the wall of the cafe, his ever-present grin somehow managing to be both mischievous and supportive. "It's Imani," Samuel confessed, the name feeling foreign and precious on his tongue. David's grin widened. "Ah, the Afrofuturist queen. What about her? Did she finally reveal her plans to colonize Mars?" Samuel chuckled, but the humor quickly faded. "No, it's David. I think I'm in love with her." The cafe buzzed around them, the clatter of ceramic, the hiss of the espresso machine, snippets of conversations weaving in and out. But for Samuel, everything narrowed to David's reaction. David's expression softened, the playful glint in his eyes replaced with genuine warmth. "Well, Samuel, that's wonderful. I've seen the way you look at her, like she's the only constellation in the night sky." He paused, then added, "Are you sure? This isn't just fascination?" Samuel shook his head, the conviction solid in his chest. "It's more than fascination. It's understanding. It's wanting to learn everything about her, to protect her dreams, to share my life with her." He felt a blush creep up his neck. Confessing his feelings aloud made them even more real, more terrifying. David reached out and clapped him on the shoulder. "Then go for it, man. Imani's a force of nature. If you feel that strongly, don't let her get away." Buoyed by David's encouragement, Samuel spent the afternoon lost in the glittering labyrinth of a jewelry store. Rows of diamonds winked at him, each more dazzling than the last. He felt hopelessly out of his depth, the saleswoman's practiced smile doing little to ease his anxiety. He wanted something unique, something that reflected Imani's spirit, her strength, her vibrant energy. Finally, he spotted it. A simple band of black gold, inlaid with a single, ethically sourced emerald, a stone that resonated with the green of Imani's eyes. It felt right. Back in his apartment, the ring nestled securely in its velvet box, Samuel paced his living room. He'd imagined this moment countless times, but now that it was actually approaching, his carefully crafted speech seemed to evaporate from his mind. He tried again, speaking to the empty armchair. "Imani, from the moment I met you, I knew that I wanted to buy you more books." He groaned, burying his face in his hands. This was a disaster. He tried a different approach, imagining Imani was actually there, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Imani," he began, his voice softer this time, "you've opened my eyes to a world I never knew existed. A world of art, of passion, of hope. You inspire me, you challenge me, and you make me want to be a better man. He paused, the words catching in his throat. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me? He sank onto the sofa, exhausted but strangely exhilarated. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It was him, and hopefully it would be enough. He pictured Imani's face, her infectious laugh, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. A wave of pure, unadulterated love washed over him. He was ready, saying yes. The late afternoon sun dripped gold onto the cobblestones as Samuel led Imani towards the botanical gardens. He'd chosen the secluded rose garden, a fragrant haven tucked away from the main paths, hoping its beauty would mirror the emotions swirling within him. He walked slowly, savoring the feel of her hand in his, a connection that still felt miraculous. He could feel the velvet box containing the emerald ring pressing against his chest, a comforting weight. This is unexpected, Imani said, her voice laced with curiosity, tilting her head as they entered the fragrant enclosure. The air hummed with the buzz of bees and the delicate perfume of countless blooms. But beautifully so. Samuel managed a nervous smile. I wanted to show you something special. He led her to a wrought iron bench nestled beneath a climbing rose, its petals a blush of pink against the green leaves. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, simply breathing in the air and absorbing the serenity. Samuel could feel his heart hammering against his ribs, a frantic drummer urging him on. He took a deep breath, steeling his resolve. He had rehearsed the words 1,000 times, but now, facing Imani, they seemed inadequate, clumsy. Imani, he began, his voice a little shaky. He reached into his pocket, his fingers tracing the outline of the velvet box. Being with you, it's changed everything for me. You've opened my eyes to a world I never knew existed, a world filled with passion, with laughter, with... He paused, searching for the right word. With life. Before you, I was just existing. Imani's eyes, usually so bright and full of playful light, were now soft with an emotion he couldn't quite decipher. A knot of anxiety tightened in his stomach. He continued, his voice gaining strength as he spoke from the heart. You inspire me, Imani. You challenge me. You make me want to be a better man. And you make me happier than I ever thought possible. He finally pulled out the box, his hands trembling slightly. He opened it, revealing the emerald ring nestled within its velvet depths. The stone, the color of deep spring, seemed to glow in the dappled sunlight. Imani Aluwale, he said, his voice thick with emotion, will you do me the incredible honor of becoming my wife? The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Samuel watched Imani's face, searching for any hint of her answer. Her eyes widened slightly, and he saw a flicker of surprise, followed by a slow, radiant smile that chased away any lingering doubts. He saw tears welling in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched his cheek. Samuel, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, you took my breath away. He waited, holding his breath, the ring held steady in his outstretched hand. Yes, she finally said, the word a soft, heartfelt sigh. Yes, Samuel, I will marry you. Relief washed over him, so profound it almost brought him to his knees. He gently took her hand and slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. The emerald seemed to sparkle with an inner light, reflecting the joy in her eyes. He stood up, pulling her up with him, and wrapped his arms around her. She buried her face in his chest, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs of happiness. He held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, a mixture of lavender and something uniquely Imani. I love you, he whispered, the words inadequate to express the depth of his feelings. She pulled back slightly, looking up at him, her eyes shining with tears. I love you too, Samuel, she said, her voice filled with a warmth that melted away the last vestiges of his fear and insecurity. More than I ever thought possible. He leaned down and kissed her, a long, slow kiss that sealed their promise. The world around them faded away, the roses, the buzzing bees, the setting sun, all dissolving into a blissful haze. There was only Imani, and the certainty that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. When they finally broke apart, Imani looked down at the ring on her finger, a small smile playing on her lips. "It's beautiful, Samuel," she said, tracing the emerald with her finger. "It's perfect." He took her hand again, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "Not as perfect as you," he said, and she laughed, a bright, joyful sound that echoed through the rose garden. They spent the rest of the evening walking through the gardens, hand in hand, talking about their future, making plans, dreaming dreams. The air was filled with the promise of happiness, a sweet, intoxicating fragrance that lingered long after they left. As they walked back towards his apartment, Samuel felt a lightness in his step he hadn't experienced in years. He was going to marry Imani, and his life, for the first time in a long time, felt truly complete. Whispers of doubt. The aroma of pot roast, usually a balm to Samuel's frayed nerves, hung heavy in the air of his childhood home, doing little to dissolve the apprehension churning within him. Fresh from the rose garden, Imani's lilting laughter still ringing in his memory, he was here to share the news. But seated across from Carol at the familiar oak table, the velvet ring box a weighty presence in his pocket, a disquieting premonition settled upon him. "So," Carol began, her hand briefly covering his, "tell me all about Imani. You've been rather guarded about her these past months." Those blue eyes, mirroring his own, searched for some truth he wasn't offering. Samuel inhaled deeply. "She's extraordinary, Mom. Genuinely. Sharp, witty, empathetic." His voice faltered, words feeling inadequate to capture the woman who possessed his soul. He produced the ring box, its tiny hinge clicking as it sprang open. The sharp intake of breath from Carol wasn't the joyful sound he'd envisioned. Her eyes widened, not with elation, but with a strange mix of shock and pity. "Samuel," she breathed, barely audible. "It's exquisite. But are you truly certain?" "Deeply sure." The knot in Samuel's stomach tightened a notch. "Of course I'm sure. I love her, Mom. I proposed, and she accepted." He attempted to infuse his words with celebratory fervor, but they rang hollow. Carol's hand covered his again, her touch, typically a source of solace, felt burdensome. "Darling, I only desire your well-being. You know that, don't you?" He nodded, defensiveness prickling his skin. While he anticipated difficulty, he hadn't expected such immediate misgivings. "She seems a lovely woman, from your scant descriptions. But her circumstances," Carol's voice trailed away, her gaze drifting toward the window as if seeking escape. Samuel's jaw hardened. "Her circumstances? You mean the fact that she uses a wheelchair?" His tone was sharper than he intended. Carol recoiled subtly. "Well, yes. It's just, Samuel, you're a young man, full of life. You'll need to care for her. Indefinitely. Are you ready for that commitment? It's a massive undertaking." "I want to care for her," Samuel countered, his voice gaining volume. "That's what love entails. Supporting each other in every way necessary." "But what about children, Samuel? Have you considered that? And the burden, the perpetual anxiety." Carol wrung her hands, her voice laced with concern. "It's not an easy path, Samuel. It will be demanding." "Demanding?" Samuel scoffed, pushing away from the table. "Life is demanding, Mom. For everyone. And Imani is profoundly capable. She's one of the most resilient people I know." He rose and began to pace the confines of the kitchen, the familiar space now stifling. "She has a thriving career, a vibrant social circle. She's autonomous and brilliant. She doesn't require me to take care of her. She desires me, and I desire her." Tears welled in Carol's eyes. "Please don't be cross with me, Samuel. I remember how you suffered after your father passed. I don't wish for you to be burdened again." "This isn't a burden, Mom," Samuel exclaimed. "This is love. This is joy. Something you always claimed you wanted from me." He raked a hand through his hair, struggling to maintain composure. "Imani brings me more joy than I've ever known. She makes me a better human being." He returned to the table, his voice softening. "Look, I understand your concerns, but you haven't met Imani. You don't know her spirit, the depth of our connection. She's not some fragile creature in need of protection. She's a force to be reckoned with, and she's the woman I intend to spend my life with. He retrieved the ring box and presented it to Carol. Please, Mom, be happy for me. Be happy for us. Carol glanced at the ring, then up at Samuel, her face still etched with doubt. She reached out, her grip surprisingly firm. I want to be Samuel. I truly do. I simply need time. I need to meet her, to understand. Samuel sighed, the tension slowly ebbing from his muscles. It wasn't the unrestrained approval he craved, but it was a beginning. Okay, he conceded, managing a weak smile. You'll adore her, Mom. I promise. Just give her a chance. A sense of foreboding washed over him. Winning over his mother would be an uphill battle, but he stood ready for the fight. For Imani, for their shared future. He refused to allow anyone, not even his own mother, to darken their shining happiness. A walk down the aisle. The air in Imani's hotel room buzzed with a nervous energy that tickled Samuel's skin even miles away. Here, surrounded by her chosen family, Imani sat bathed in the soft glow of the vanity mirror. David, his voice booming even when he tried to whisper, was meticulously adjusting the intricate beadwork on Imani's headpiece, a cascade of shimmering crystals and pearls woven into a breathtaking halo. Her friends, a kaleidoscope of vibrant colors and personalities, fussed over every detail, their laughter a soothing counterpoint to the thrumming anxiety in Imani's chest. Breathe, love, David said, his dark eyes meeting hers in the mirror. You look absolutely radiant. Samuel is going to lose his mind. Imani managed a weak smile. Easy for you to say. You're not the one about to publicly declare undying love while simultaneously battling the urge to bolt for the nearest airport. One of her friends, Aisha, a whirlwind of fiery red hair and boundless enthusiasm, squeezed Imani's hand. Girl, please. You and Samuel? You're practically a rom-com waiting to happen. Just imagine the meet-cute montage. Imani chuckled, the sound still laced with a tremor. She caught David's eye again. He's good, David. Really good. But he deserves the best. And sometimes I worry I'm not. David cut her off, his voice firm. Don't you dare start with that nonsense. Samuel knows exactly what he's getting. He sees you, Imani. All of you. And he loves you fiercely for it. Now let's get you married. Across town, Samuel stood rigid at the altar, the crisp white shirt feeling suddenly too tight. The church, usually a sanctuary of quiet contemplation, was filled with a low hum of expectant chatter. He adjusted his tie for the 10th time, his gaze darting towards the entrance. The scent of lilies, usually a comforting aroma, felt cloying, overwhelming. He spotted his mother in the second row, her face a mask of carefully controlled politeness. He tried to catch her eye, to offer a reassuring smile, but she seemed deliberately focused on the floral arrangement adorning the pew in front of her. He shifted his weight, the polished wood of the altar digging into his back. His best man, Thomas, clapped him on the shoulder. Relax, man. She'll be here, and she'll be stunning. Just try to breathe. Samuel took a deep breath, attempting to follow Thomas's advice, but his lungs felt constricted. He pictured Imani, her infectious laugh, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she was truly happy, the sharp intelligence that shone through every word. He loved her, a love that had blossomed unexpectedly, transforming his solitary existence into something vibrant and meaningful. But beneath the joy, a knot of apprehension tightened in his stomach. He knew his family's reservations, their unspoken doubts about the challenges Imani's disability might bring. He hoped, desperately, that today they would see what he saw, a woman of extraordinary strength, grace, and love. The organ music swelled, signaling the beginning of the processional. Samuel's heart hammered against his ribs. He watched as the bridesmaids, radiant in emerald green, made their way down the aisle. Then, a hush fell over the room. Imani appeared at the entrance, her beauty breathtaking. The light streamed through the stained glass windows, illuminating her face, highlighting the delicate curve of her cheekbone, the sparkle in her eyes. She moved with a quiet dignity, her hand resting lightly on her father's arm. As she walked, Samuel could see the subtle tremor in her hand, the slight hesitation in her step. But her gaze was locked on his, a beacon of unwavering love and commitment. He met her halfway, taking her hand in his. Her skin was warm, familiar. He squeezed gently, offering a silent reassurance. The ceremony passed in a blur. He barely registered the priest's words, his focus solely on Imani. When it came time for the vows, her voice trembled, a fragile thread in the vastness of the church. "Samuel," she began, her eyes searching his, "I promise to love you fiercely, to challenge you always, and to support you through every joy and every sorrow." He squeezed her hand again, willing her to draw strength from him. "I promise to be your partner, your confidant, and your best friend. I promise to build a life with you filled with laughter, adventure, and unwavering love." He saw a tear trace a path down her cheek, glittering like a tiny diamond. Then it was his turn. He spoke from the heart, his voice resonating with the depth of his love. He promised to cherish her, to honor her, to protect her, to love her unconditionally for all the days of his life. As he spoke, he glanced at his mother. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of concern and something he couldn't quite decipher. He quickly looked away, focusing again on Imani, on the woman who had irrevocably changed his world. The priest pronounced them husband and wife. Samuel lifted Imani's veil and gently kissed her. A wave of relief washed over him, mingled with an overwhelming sense of joy. They were married. They had done it. As they turned to face the congregation, hand in hand, Samuel saw the hesitant smiles, the polite applause. But he also saw something else, a flicker of unease in his mother's eyes, a silent question that hung heavy in the air. He pushed the feeling aside, determined to focus on the present, on the radiant woman by his side, on the beginning of their life together. But deep down, a nagging sense of foreboding remained, a quiet whisper that threatened to shatter the fragile peace of their wedding day. The honeymoon suite. The limousine purred to a halt before the coastal resort's imposing facade. Samuel, still dizzy from the day's joyous frenzy, offered Imani a tender smile as the valet swung open her door. The marine air, redolent with salt and jasmine's perfume, flooded his senses, a stark contrast to the airless reception hall he'd just escaped. He clasped her hand, finding solace in its familiar warmth, and guided her toward the entrance. Inside, a tranquil hush reigned. Subdued lighting caressed polished marble and lavish floral displays. A poised hostess greeted them with practiced charm, confirming their reservation and presenting Samuel with an ornate, weighty keycard. "The honeymoon suite, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. We hope your stay is delightful." As they ascended in the hushed elevator, Samuel squeezed Imani's hand, an unspoken promise of enduring love. The door slid open to a secluded corridor. He swiped the card, nudging open their suite's portal. Imani's breath hitched. The room was stunning. Panoramic windows framed the ocean, now a silvered tableau beneath the moonlight. A king-sized bed, adorned with sumptuous linens, dominated the space, complemented by a champagne bottle nestled in a shimmering ice bucket. Scattered rose petals graced the bedspread. "Oh, Samuel," Imani murmured, her voice laced with awe, "it's beyond perfect." He encircled her from behind, resting his cheek against her hair. "Only the very finest for my wife." He kissed the sensitive curve of her neck, inhaling her delicate fragrance. After a moment, Imani disentangled herself gently. "I should probably, freshen up," she suggested, her gaze flickering toward the sumptuous bathroom. "All that dancing has taken its toll." Samuel nodded with understanding. "Take your time, darling. I'll pop the champagne." He watched her retreat toward the bathroom, a subtle catch in her stride he scarcely noticed anymore. It was simply part of Imani, a detail he cherished. The bathroom was a sanctuary of cool marble and gleaming chrome. Imani closed the door softly, leaning against it, her pulse quickening. The enormity of the moment descended. This was it. No more pretense. Drawing a steadying breath, she faced her reflection, a lovely bride, shadowed by a secret. She unzipped her gown, letting it cascade to the floor. Settling onto the plush bench, her fingers trembled as she reached for the small case, carefully secreted beneath her lingerie. Inside lay two elegant, carbon fiber prosthetics, custom-engineered for a flawless fit. For years, she'd kept their existence hidden, fearing that Samuel, or anyone, would view her differently, offering pity or admiration for the wrong reasons. She longed to be cherished for her intellect, her spirit, her quick wit, not for conquering a physical challenge. But tonight, the truth had to surface. She refused to begin their marriage on a foundation of deception, however well meant. With a resolute breath, she unfastened her supportive braces, setting them aside. The chilled tile greeted her skin as she painstakingly attached the prosthetics, locking them in place. It had been an age since she'd worn them full-time. She'd grown comfortable with the braces, their familiar weight, their subtle shifts with each step. Now, she stood tall, a height she hadn't known in years. She approached the mirror and beheld herself. The prosthetics were remarkably realistic, mirroring her legs' natural shape and curves. She tested her balance, a slight waver giving way to a newfound poise. She glided to the door, her hand hovering on the handle. This was it, point of no return. Samuel had finally uncorked the champagne, the celebratory report echoing through the suite. He had filled 2 flutes, captivated by the shimmering trails of bubbles, and was admiring the vista when the bathroom door creaked open. He turned, a smile poised on his lips, but the greeting died in his throat. Standing in the doorway was Imani, resplendent and strikingly taller. She stood unassisted, devoid of the familiar support he'd grown so used to seeing. She stood complete. He gaped, his mind struggling to process the scene unfolding before him. Imani advanced tentatively, her eyes brimming with trepidation and vulnerability. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "There's something I need to confess." She paused. Then, with every ounce of courage she possessed, "I can walk." A new beginning, standing tall. The room's atmosphere thickened, each breath a conscious effort. Samuel's eyes widened, not in horror, but with a dawning realization that shifted across his features like sunlight through stained glass. He registered the fragility beneath Imani's usually resolute posture, the tremor in her unwavering gaze. He glimpsed the history of unspoken battles, victories etched into the steadfast lines of her face. "Imani," he whispered, her name an invocation. He closed the space between them, his hands rising to cradle her face, not to offer support, but in a gesture of profound tenderness. "Why?" he murmured. Imani winced, anticipating disappointment. "Because I feared your rejection. I dreaded you perceiving me differently. I yearned for you to know me, the version you imagined before this." Her voice fractured, thick with suppressed tears. Samuel's thumbs brushed her cheekbones, featherlight. "Imani, my love encompasses all of you. The intellectual sparring partner, the woman who ignites my laughter, the artist who paints my world with such vivid hues. Nothing can diminish that." A tender smile touched his lips. "Though, I confess, I'm intrigued by the elaborate deception." A watery chuckle bubbled from Imani. It solidified into a defense mechanism, a shield against explanations and pity. It became ingrained like a second skin. She glanced down, then met his gaze, her eyes shimmering with tentative hope. Does it matter?" Samuel's response was a kiss, a pledge of reassurance. Breaking the embrace, his eyes shone with understanding. "It wounds me that you felt compelled to conceal yourself. But your choice to unveil this now, that is everything." He clasped her hand. "Let's introduce the real you." Imani hesitated. "Are you certain?" "Your mother. My mother will see what I see. A resilient, extraordinary woman worthy of only esteem and love." He squeezed her hand. "Trust me." They exited the suite, hand in hand, Imani's stride regaining its confidence. The murmurs in the hallway quieted as Samuel's family turned toward them. Carol's jaw slackened. Her gaze flickered from Imani's face to her legs and back, an unspoken question hanging in the air. The silence stretched, heavy and awkward, before Carol stepped forward, her expression etched with regret. "Imani," she began, her voice wavering. I erred. Gravely. My own bias blinded me. Please forgive my failing." In turn, each member of Samuel's family expressed their apologies and offered words of welcome. A wave of relief washed over Imani, a tangible weight easing from her spirit. She accepted their amends with grace, her heart brimming with gratitude and renewed optimism. As the tension dissolved, a festive spirit sparked anew. The air thrummed with revitalized energy, a celebration reborn. The band, sensing the shift, launched into an upbeat melody, and Samuel turned to Imani, his eyes sparkling with playful mischief. "May I have this dance, Mrs. Johnson?" Imani laughed, a pure, resonant sound that filled the space. "I wondered when you'd ask, Mr. Johnson." They swayed to the rhythm, lost in their embrace, enveloped by the affection and acceptance of their loved ones. The dance floor transformed into a haven, a realm where flaws dissolved and only love persisted. Samuel spun Imani, her dress blossoming around her, a swirl of colors reflecting the joy blooming within her. Later, as the last of the guests departed, Samuel and Imani stood intertwined, watching the limousine approach. Their luggage was already loaded, their honeymoon awaiting. Carol approached them, her gaze warm. "Have a glorious time," she said, encircling Imani in a heartfelt embrace. "And welcome to the family, truly welcome." As they drove away, Imani rested her head on Samuel's shoulder, a soft sigh escaping her lips. The city lights blurred past the window, each beacon a herald of new beginnings. "Where are we headed?" Imani murmured, her voice gentle. Samuel grinned, drawing her close. "That, my love, remains a surprise. But rest assured, it's a place where we can shed every burden and simply be us." The limousine surged forward, carrying them toward their future, a future founded on love, acceptance, and the unwavering belief that two souls, bound by destiny, could conquer any obstacle, standing tall, eternally. Their honeymoon became a testament to their bond, a symbol of love's power to triumph over prejudice and commence a fresh chapter on the pristine page of their life together.